much.
Did she even look?
She did
No,
look.
I didn't, because I'm still, I'm in another
Did you
mode.
hear what I said?
No.
We are not recording this meeting.
Oh, okay.
That's good to know. I did not know that.
We aren't? Really? Good.
We are.
We are. I just saw your post.
And can I say that I didn't post that? Emma did. Emma posted that, because I went, what did I do?
No, I saw it, and I
Yeah,
told these
Emma-
guys earlier I was
Emma
gonna give you a
posted
bad
it.
time. And Jeff says, good thing you told me, because I told people about it too. We up?
Yes,
Yeah.
All right, we're up. We'll go ahead and turn this meeting over to our assessor.
Okay. So,
Announce yourself on the record.
I'm Anita Hymas, I'm Bannock County Assessor, and what we're coming before the commission today for is just to present our, kind of where we're at with our values and what we're kind of seeing, and kind of want to give you a heads up on what we're looking at for BOE and what we might be seeing for Board of Equalization and some of the changes we've had on different categories in our offices, and our analyst Joshua Stokes is actually going to present the presentation, and he has done a fantastic job. I will say that he had built one that was over an hour, and he did a beautiful job, but we chopped it a bunch. But he did do a beautiful job and has done a great job. I have other appraisers here. If you have any questions along the way that we can all answer, we'll be glad to do that. Or we can answer them at the very end. He's just going to kind of go through the presentation, and then if you have any questions, we will be glad to answer them.
Okay. And before you speak, just make sure you introduce yourself for the records.
Okay?
Thank you.
So,
Me,
turn
okay,
it over
so
to you.
I'm Joshua Stokes. Okay, so to start off, make sure this is set up right. This is going to be a presentation on the 2023 market values. So these are for the certified values that we're going to have this year. But we're looking at the 2022 fiscal year. So anytime we do any a sales analysis or a ratio study, they are going to be based on the sales from the previous year. So make that point of clarification, because I switched between 22 and 23 and didn't want to confuse anybody. Our sample size this year is roughly 1,600 sales that we're working from. Last year they were roughly 1,700 sales, and the year before it was about 1,500 sales, just to give you an idea of what we work with. That is a large sample statistically, but it is only roughly 3% of the county. So it is one of those things to keep in mind. We have to, after we do this analysis, we have to make those adjustments that we're making and apply them to every parcel in the county. And so when we do that, we're always working in a range. So a given range, and I'll go further into that. Okay, so this, I won't spend a lot of time on this. This is basically just the topics that we'll be covering.
Okay.
I've handed out those, I'm sorry if I don't have enough, but I did hand them out some these presentations in writing so that we, if you can't see the screen, I apologize for that. I'll make the graphs bigger next year. But if you need to take any notes, or if you want to refer to a slide later on or towards the end, feel free to do so. And if you come up with any other questions, even after the meeting, feel free to drop by and I can go into more detail. Like she mentioned, I had to cut this down for time's sake, so it won't have everything we need in it, but the important stuff. So moving on from there, I wanted to start off by taking a look at our market value. So you can see here, this, let's see, maybe you can't. This first graph here is for Bannock County. And then the graph to the left here is one from the Idaho State Tax Commission, and then you've got the U.S. Census Bureau graph down here. And what I was doing is taking a look at the three markets to compare the three of them over time so that we can clearly see what's going on in the real estate market as compared to a state and a national level. And as you can see, I've highlighted these three areas. All three of them are pointing out that I've got highlighted from 2020 to 2022, and they're all pointing out the significant increase that we've all seen in the market over the last few years. And I went back a little further just to give you an idea as to what the market was previous as to what we're seeing now. As you can see the increase. And for 2022, if you're looking at the county here, that's roughly this area. You can see that they've continued to increase as well in 2022. Now, we have had a bit of a reprieve, as you can see. I don't know if you can see in this graph, as well as this one, that the third quarter, or somewhere around the middle of the third quarter, and into the first quarter of 2023, sales started to slow down quite a bit. Up to that point, you can see out of the last 14 years, they've been nothing but increasing. In the last 3 years, increasing significantly until about the third quarter of 2022 and into the first quarter of 2023. We're seeing things begin to slow down. Again, we're looking at the full 2022 year, just to give you an idea. And then this graph here to the left, from the State Tax Commission, this first graph, black graph here, is based on our residential values, taxable values, and then the graph below, or the line below, is your commercial. So you can see that it's also had an upward trend, but not nearly what we've been seeing in the residential market. Okay, so this next one here, we're looking at the median values for both the United States, for Idaho and Bannock County. To give you an idea, the graph on the left is sort of visual of these numbers to show you the change in the market over the last 3 to 4 years. I have 2019 in here for the reason to give you an idea what the market looked like before we started to see these significant increases. As you can see for Bannock County, over the last 4 years, we've seen roughly over an 80% increase in values. Same with Idaho here. We've both seen values jump significantly. To give you a bit of an idea, I live in Bingham County, and my home went up $155,000 in the last 3 years. And that's typically what we're seeing in this market as well, over the 3 to 4 year period. So now I'm just zooming in a little bit here. Now we're going to be focusing on Bannock County. This is called a scatter plot, and this is focusing on, it's a 5-year trend from about the last quarter of 2017 to 2020, the end of 2022. And it has every reported sale plotted on this graph here. And the purpose of a scatter plot is to give us an idea as to the change in the market as well, and the trends that we're seeing in that market. This orange line is called a trend line, and as you can see, it's right there in the middle of where the majority of the sales are bunched. And you can see that there's a significant increase. You can see between where we started in 2017 to 2023, it's almost a $200,000 difference in values over a long period of time. This is more of a long look back. But I want you to point out, there we go, as appraisers, we work within a range I'd mentioned before, and if we were to look at the orange trend line as market value, our responsibility, at least according to state statutes, is that we're within 90 to 110% of that value. So we try to, remember, we're working with a small sample, and we have to distribute that to every parcel in the county, so we're working within a range. We try to stick to, we're conservative and try to stick to around 94%, so just below that value. And I'll show that in other graphs as well. But that's, as you can see, this is a rate out from the values that over 80% of the sales on this chart will show up in that range. Just to give you an idea. So we try to follow the majority of what the sales in the county are doing. But we will also break them down into market areas and neighborhoods, if you've heard of them, so that we can look at each of these neighborhoods independently of one another, because they can be quite different, which I'll try to demonstrate. But before we move on from this graph, I wanted to point out sales over $500,000. And this was more just a way to demonstrate some of the changes that we've seen in the market. So in 2018, there were roughly 25 sales of homes. This is just residential properties, not commercial and industrial or ag. But we've seen roughly 25 sales in 2018 of homes that were over $500,000, while in 2022, we've nearly got 200 of them. So this is just another way to be able to look at these sales visually and see the change in the market that we've been seeing, including in 2023. That's roughly 8 times what we've seen.
Are those sales just a reflection of the increased prices, or has...
Those are actual sales.
Well, I know, but my comment or my question is, are there that many more additional homes in that price range on the market, or is that just a reflection of not more inventory, just the prices have gone up, so that's why our the number of sales has gone up. You understand the
Yes,
difference?
okay, I think I understand what you're saying, and I would be a combination of both. I was going to show the increase in the new construction permits that we've had as well, just to give you that idea. Most of it's going to be value increase
Okay.
in prices sold, but we have seen both,
Okay.
both new construction and sales.
I guess the more appropriate way to ask that, would the inventory of homes in that price range reflect, is there a correlation between that? So
Yeah, so if you were looking at the same inventory of just existing homes by themselves, they have increased
Okay.
significantly, yeah. Like in the earlier graph, we were showing that they've, over a 4-year period, have gone up over 80% in value. So like I mentioned, mine had gone up 155,000 in a 3-year, not in a single year, but.
Okay.
But yeah, there is an increase in new construction as well. So this is scatter plot, but it's focusing more on just commercial. And you'll notice that if you look at scatter plots like this, this one's on commercial, but manufactured homes, bare land and commercial are going to be quite similar. There are a lot fewer sales to pull from. The trend is similar, as you can see, it's still an upward climb, but they are also a lot more dispersed. There's a lot more variation in the range of sales as well. And the graph to the side, it's a little harder to read. I'll have one figure a little later, but it's given us the total taxable value for the county, broken out by three categories: residential, commercial, and ag. Just to give you an idea as to the percentage here is 83% of the total taxable value in the county is roughly residential, while 16% of that is commercial and about 1% ag.
So what this shows you is how much of the tax burden is placed on residential properties.
Exactly.
State your name. State your name.
Celeste Gunn. Thank you.
I'll try to remember that. Okay, so I'm focusing now, this is also a scatter plot, but it's just looking at just 2022. And so this is the information we're using for the 2023 assessed values. If you look at the yellow line here, that's looking at the assessed values. You can see haven't changed over the year while the sales have increased. And you can see there's quite a bit of variation here. There's quite a few sales. If you're looking at the 500,000 and higher, you can see that the 193 sales are sitting up here, and there are several more 900,000 and higher as well, and these are residential homes. If you look at the top here, I have a little bit of information, so I can find where my mouse is. We've got our median sales price that I'd shown before is around 318,000, and that's the middle of the ground. If we're looking at a range, I'm looking at the median versus an average because it's not affected by outliers. And then you can see that our median assessed value is just below that, around 268. And this is the median value of, this is the median assessed value, not the median sales price. As you can see, we try to remain conservative, but still meet the requirements that we have to meet. We also have here, to give you an idea, a little later I'll show you a map of a couple examples of a map, and we have site ratings that we use that we've used to try to clean up and equalize the land in the area. And the $69,000 is that middle of the ground median value that you're looking at. If you look at the median improvement value, price per square foot of $189 a square foot, talking to a few contractors, for the higher end homes, they're closer to $200, $250, $300 a square foot, but for your average home, that's costing in 2022 is around $189 a square foot. And to give you a bit of reference, in 2005, my home was cost $84 a square foot. Just to give you a reference as to the increase we're seeing. I'd mentioned earlier that we break out the county into market areas and into neighborhoods with the purpose, because we find the sales in those areas so completely different at times that we want to treat them independently of one another. And that's why, say, a single percentage, blanket percentage won't work to just apply to every parcel in the county. We would rather look at these individually because they can be so different. And this is an example. This is a high-end neighborhood in the county, while this one is more of a lower-end neighborhood in the county. These are the sales in those areas. You can see that there's an increase in both areas, or in each of these areas you'll still see this. But they're significantly different. And I have a couple of the graphs I'll show you to show this. But this is why these ranges exist and why we want to look at these rather than applying a blanket percentage to the entire county, we want to look at each of these neighborhoods independently because they're so different. If you're looking at this lower end neighborhood, these sales are much tighter and much closer to market value currently, so very little has to be adjusted to bring them to market value. While in the high end neighborhood, we have to make more adjustments we have to bring some of these homes down and some of them up to make them equitable and bring them to market value, while that doesn't have to happen so much in this lower end neighborhood. And if we had applied a blanket value to the entire county, that would have brought those lower end values too high. And then those upper values would have ended up being too low. And so we look at neighborhoods individually, and the borders of those neighborhoods that we're looking at are also reassessed every year as well. That's actually one of the first projects we'll be working on this fall, is to analyze those neighborhoods and making sure they're reflecting the proper market in that area. And a market, or I should say a neighborhood, is a geographical region that covers a couple thousand homes in a given area. As an example, like your Highland would be an entire Highland area around the temple and the golf course and fairgrounds. That's all one neighborhood. Let's show these graphs here. This is that same neighborhood, this a high-end neighborhood, but instead of looking at a scatter plot, we're looking at median sales price and median assessed value. And this is that same low-end neighborhood. As you can see, we are trying to remain conservative in those assessed values. We remain in compliance, but we would prefer to remain at the low end of that spectrum, or that range that we're looking at. And if you're looking at the median assessed values, you can see that the high-end neighborhood is more than double what the other neighborhood is. And so it would be unfair to treat them alike. They're different neighborhoods, and we want to treat them like different neighborhoods, or different markets. These are a few other examples of some of the other exploratory analysis that we'll do, just to try to either analyze the different markets or the land to building ratios. This top left one is arraying the sales in given market areas in the counties. You can see the first one here is rural properties in the county, is where the majority of these sales have occurred as far as dollar value. But then you look at the other end and you're looking at Aramo Downey areas, and you can see there's a very big difference, and we don't want to be treating them the same as these. We don't want to be treating them the same because there's a significant difference between the two of them. So if we had taken and applied a blanket value, that would be bringing Aramo and Ingham and Downey considerably higher than they would need to be, versus what we're seeing. These rural areas are rural areas around that as well, to keep in mind. So we even separate the small cities from the rural areas. You're seeing the histogram below here is pointing out, it's simply grouping the sales into price ranges so that we can see where the majority of the values fall in our county. There are a lot of high-end sales, that's why you're seeing that it's going off to the right there quite a bit. Let me see if I can see where my... but the majority of the sales that are occurring in the county are between 180 to 410,000, roughly falling around this area. This graph here in the middle is showing the overall county average assessed value and sales price, while this one to the upper right is showing our land to building ratio. This one is county-wide. We try to look at them individually in neighborhoods as well. But this also reflects that the value of land has been going up more than the value of the homes themselves. And so we're seeing more of a 25 to 75% ratio, or a 1 to 3 ratio. And then this is just the taxable value graph again. It's just a little bigger, easier to see. So it's just to give you an example of some of the different forms of analysis that we'll perform to try to create equity in the market. There are a couple things we want to be able to touch on that we're probably going to see in this market this year more than others. And one of them will be manufactured land, and the next will be converted land, as we did a big land project to put all property on current land schedules, and to create equity in the land in the county. And so those two things we're probably going to see were the biggest changes. Last year, say 2021, when we're looking at those values, the affordable homes in the market would be homes 1970 and older. That's where the majority of the sales that we were seeing, the majority of increase in sales and in the value and in the number of sales were in older homes. And this year, it seems to be that those manufactured homes are now the new affordable housing. We have tripled the number of sales that we've had in the last 2 years, as far as the number of sales, and the values as well are increasing. These, along the top here, you can see the sales along with the assessed values. I put the average in here just to give you a bit of an idea as to why we use the median versus the average. As you can see, these averages are affected by some of those outliers. Some of those sales prices on these manufactured homes are high enough that they could adversely affect the values, and that's why we focus on a median, or the middle of the ground, where the majority of the sales are occurring. So the median assessed value of most manufactured homes in the county are around $69,000. You can see that the median and price, you can also see that our assessed values, we still try to keep those low. We want to stay within legal requirements that we need to, but we try to remain conservative there, because there is a bit of an increase. We have, these two graphs are simply like the other ones, are showing the median sales price or the growth in the area. And that I want to point out the median improvement. This is the price per square foot is what we're finding for manufactured homes in this county, around $63 a square foot. And this next slide shows the ranges that we found from the sources we've been looking at from our own studies and from third parties. A newer manufactured home can range anywhere from $40,000 to $250,000 for a new manufactured home in Bannock County. And for used ones, they'll range anywhere from $12,000 to $75,000. And that, I pointed out earlier that median value, or right in the middle, is where we're shooting for our assessment, is right in the middle of that range. And then these next two are simply examples of the price, applying that price per square foot to a property or to a manufactured home.
But
So I provide-
still, a manufactured home is
They are.
a third of what a stick-built home is.
Yes, yeah, they are. They're still quite a bit lower than what you find in any, what would you call it? Any traditional built homes, yes, you got it. I provided a few comparables here to give you an idea. We also, once we set these values, we want to compare our assessed values to sales prices to see if they are supportive of one another. Or do we have the values where they need to be? Do we need to make further adjustments? And these are some examples of those to give you an idea as to what we're running into. The first one here would be on newer mobile homes. Now, when we've assessed mobile homes, or when we analyzed mobile homes, we did not apply a blanket value there either. Because you'll notice here, as we're looking at these older mobile homes, did not rise at the same rate as the newer ones did. And so they needed to be treated differently. So we were looking more at different age ranges and applying those separately. So if there was not as much growth in an older one, you wouldn't see that in the market. So this first one is simply pointing out 2,000 and newer mobile homes. And you can see the price per square foot here falls in line, actually remains a bit conservative if you're comparing it to the sales that we're looking at. And in the second, you can also notice that, in that first one, that they were all single-wide mobile manufactured homes with no land, and they're all here in Pocatello. So the second one here is manufactured homes with declared real property, so we've taken out buildings and land out of it. Then we're just looking at the manufactured homes. They're all double-wide, and they're all roughly the 1970s, 1980s. So this is more your mid-range. And as you can see here, the price per square foot, excuse me, I moved forward. Price per square foot here also supports the sales that we're seeing. And then this final slide here is showing manufactured homes that are around your 1970s and older. We know that HUD started their building requirements around 1976 there. And so these will experience are slightly different in the market. They're nowhere near what we're seeing the newer manufactured homes go for. But as you can see, the price per square foot is less, but our assessed values are coming in a bit conservative or below or right in line with what we're seeing the sales do in that area. And those are just some examples for you to look at to see what we're finding in the market along with the values we're setting. And so to change subjects there, you mentioned before, Mr. Huff, that we were talking about new construction. We have seen an increase in sales prices, but we've also seen an increase in the new construction as well. And these are new construction permits that have been entered into our system, the ProVal system. And you can see that in 2022 that they're more than double what we've seen in the last 2 years. And in the first quarter of 2023, we're almost half that already. So we're expecting to see further growth as far as new construction in the county. Now, these last few slides here, I've got about 4 or 5 left, and this is more on we know that last year land had a bit of an issue, and we were in the middle of a conversion process, and because we can't make those changes in bulk, we have to do them one at a time. It takes a full 5-year cycle to complete that conversion. And at first we sketched homes and we made sure that they were all in and valuing properly. And now this year we've done that last part of putting the land schedules on, or changing land from a converted state to putting it on a proper land schedule and bring those land schedules up to market and equitable with the neighbors. This map is more of a representation of this. Here I was showing you, we have several site ratings in the corner there. So this map isn't showing value, but it's showing site ratings. And those site ratings each show the rate at which prices are calculated. So every home in this purple area, they're all calculated at exactly the same rate, the same site value, the same value per square foot. And so your C and your D site ratings are more your benchmark or your middle of the ground of where land sits, unless there's other indicators, sales, or location that will increase those values. So say up around the temple and around golf courses, you'll see more of an A or a B site rating, simply because the sales are much, much higher there compared to our benchmark. And our site ratings E and F are more for where we're seeing lower end sales, or lots that are more for townhomes or condos that are extremely small lots compared to what they have around them. And so those we'll actually look at separately as well, so that we're not comparing them to something that's 2 to 3 times the size. So regardless of the size, they're being calculated at exactly the same rate. So you could go up and down the street and see that you and your neighbor's values are all equitable. There were roughly about 12,000 parcels that needed to be converted at that time. So, and a majority of them were here in the city. So that we are going to see this year. We'll probably spend the majority of June trying to educate homeowners on this, as well as if there are adjustments need to be made. Another example here, just to give you an idea, this is another shot of a map here with, I believe, Alameda and Yellowstone. And this all is roughly in the same site rating in the same market area, so they're being treated equitably with one another, except for the smaller townhomes and condos. I have an example here to the left of sales. All these are prices that occurred this year in the same subdivision, just as an example to give you an idea of how we try to create equity and why we use a median value. I've got them arrayed in order here, and you can see in that same subdivision, some of those sales would range from between $50,000 to $75,000 in a given subdivision, and we picked the middle of the ground at $65,000. But because that subdivision was part of a larger neighborhood, that neighborhood was put at $60,000. So that would be your original site rating on that for that land itself. They're all the neighbors are all at $60,000. So to give you a bit of an idea, I wanted to provide an example so you can see visually see both with bare land and with the home what a converted land would look like. And you can see that they're equitable with their neighbors now. So House B is one that we started this process in 2019, so you can see that all the land was converted at that time for House A. And House B, the land was on a proper land schedule and was adjusted correctly. So as you can see in 2019, there was quite a variation between either that or even in 2022 between a converted value and land value that's on correct and updated market or land schedule. Here we're looking at 2021 and 2022 that many of those that were on the actual land schedule, they went down, and they're all at $60,000, but these values for the converted land schedule had gone from this example, 38 to 60,000. They're still equitable with all their neighbors, but they had been below value long enough that they'll see a bit of an increase. And that, I'm running short on time here, but that's exactly, this is the same example, and please feel free to ask questions after, or even at another time stop by and I can go into more detail, but You'll either see that in the land or you'll see that in the homes that once they go from the converted value, some of them will come down, some will come up because we're trying to create them equity in the market there with those. But they will see a value change more than you'd see on homes that were already at market value. And this was just more of a another comparable for the land that we saw in that area, that to show that price per square foot, that they're in range with the sales in that area. And so just to reiterate, just to finalize, these are the three things that we expect to see during pre-BOE and BOE, and that we'll be working with customers or with homeowners every day to try to educate them on the changes in the market and work with them on fixing errors or any issues that problems that they have. And just to give you a heads up as to what we expect to see. And that will finalize the presentation. So I know we're short on time. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. If not, please feel free to look it over, make any notes, and you can stop by any time and ask questions.
If I can make a comment, Mr. Chair, in my 3 years here, this is probably the most impressive information that we have received as to what is going on. So I would like to commend you and your staff for assembling just some fantastic data for not only us, but for the public to see what's going on and how you guys are trying very hard to be as equitable as possible in the community. And so thank you for letting your people do great work. So thank you.
I have an amazing staff, I do, and I appreciate them, and we have worked very diligently this year to clean up things, and hopefully things go well this year and we can help the public understand better what we're doing. So we appreciate your time and letting us come over and presenting this to us, to you as well.
And I echo what Jeff said. And as we have people listening or whatever, your office is open and you're more than willing to accommodate people and talk with people and try to settle things. One thing I will let people know is you guys do look at a mass evaluation.
Correct.
The purpose of BOE is that we have the opportunity to look at individuals. But you guys have the opportunity to look at individuals if they will come in and talk to your office, and your office is more than willing and capable of helping them to either understand or to make changes. So, John?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I would concur with what you two have said. I think you're doing a great job over there. Keep up the good work. And for those that are watching, I absolutely encourage people, if you have any questions, concerns regarding your assessed values, go see the assessor.
And I've already been texting Emma, but please make sure you get with her so we can make this as available as possible for the general public.
We had to
Great
make
job.
some final tweaks to this morning, or we would have had it to her today, but we
No,
had to make
this
some
is
final
just
tweaks this
fantastic.
morning.
This needs to be shared. Good job.
Good report. Good report. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, where's Shanda?